So today I'm going to explain about wireless sensor networks for wildlife tracking and conservation. So in this paper, wireless sensor networks for wildlife tracking and conservation, today we are going to explain about how to see the behavior of plants and animals using sensors. So how do we track and how do we help in conservation? So coming to the introduction, the advent of wireless sensor networks, on the other hand, has presented researchers and conservationists with new chances to follow movement patterns and observe wildlife behavior and acquire vital insights into the exploitation of habitat. Thanks to installing these sensors in inaccessible and isolated sites, researchers can now monitor animals in real time and record fine grained information that was previously difficult to get. This was previously difficult to do. Additionally, to guarantee the efficient collection, transmission, and storage of data, the architecture of the sensor network needs to be upgraded. One of the most significant advantages of using wireless sensor networks for tracking animals is the real-time data collection and analysis capabilities. Traditional tracking methods frequently involve manually collecting data, which can take significant amount of effort and can only cover a certain amount of geography and time. In other words, conserving endangered species or mitigating hazards makes it possible. To track animals in national parks and reserves, a temperature sensor can measure each heart heat, animal heat, and heart rate. Sensor can measure its BPM. Temperature sensors measure real-time animal body temperature monitoring. So here we can see that wildlife behavior and patterns, these insights are important whenever we are using a sensor to identify the animal behavior and plants behavior. So whenever we identify this information, it is crucial for us to make the species conserved. So to track these animals at national parks, reserves, temperature sensors, we can measure all the animals, heat, heart rate sensor, all those things we can do with the help of sensors. So the main thing here is what we are measuring here, the heart rate, what is the animal heat, what is the temperature inside the animal's heat we don't have. So in order to see this thing, so the suggested system tracks the animal pulse and alerts the entry point when it's out of range. The controller communicates the animal's position, temperature, and heartbeat to the applications on a mobile app over Wi-Fi using GPS module. When it comes to WSN, a large selection of sensor types may be included for a goal of tracking animals. Each of these sensor types is meant to suit special criteria for research, and many options are available. The proposed enhanced version of Vivo LO V5M for detecting wild animals will allow more accurate wildlife detection. Environmental sensors collect data on the status of habitat and any possible dangers present. It takes a look at several sensor types in use, the pros and cons of deploying a WSN in different ecosystem, data management and analysis approaches, and more. To protect the precious biodiversity that exists in our planet, researchers and conservationists may now make for informed decisions with the help of this technology. They provide a novel method of gathering and transmitting data in a real time, which helps scientists and conservationists learn crucial information about the habits of different animals and plants. It may be possible to use this information to help save these species. Wild animals conflict is growing in forest and farmland areas, causing significant losses and putting lives in a danger. The zone must be monitored to keep animals out and avoid disruptions. Researchers have noted the usefulness of a wireless sensor networks in wildlife monitoring studies for gathering information on animal populations and the habitats in which they inhabit. Wireless sensor networks enable researchers to gather information that was once impossible to acquire, enabling them to make a better informed judgments about the management of conservation efforts. The IoT's primary objective is to connect and give services through many sensors. The various IoT devices near the nature reserve perimeters are used to establish an alert system. So, from the first paper, what we have observed here is crucial information about habits of different animals and plants is taken. Okay. So this will help us to save the species. In the 11th paper or reference, wireless sensor networks makes it easier to make educated decisions by giving data in real-time movement of animals, the dynamics of populations, and the conditions of their environments. In the first paper, what we are doing is we are taking crucial information about the habits and different animals and planets. In the second one, what we are doing here is in the other paper, so researchers will gather information and they make decisions based on the information. So for management and conservation efforts. So in the other paper, what they do is they make educated decisions when they gather data in real time on the movement of animals. So these are the literature survey that been done. So in other literature survey, using motion detection to capture animals in action is an innovative technique. Capturing movies of wild animals is challenging without moving. Camera operators may have to wait hours or even days to get the needed video. So whenever you are using a camera operators, so to get the video, they need to even wait for days or hours. When you use motion detection, it can be easily solved. So this is necessary to meet the criteria. The long-term survival of WSN is a crucial factor in determining the level of effectiveness they bring to efforts to conserve wildlife. It is possible to collect extensive data on animal behavior, environmental characteristics, and the state of habitats when various sensors are added to these networks. Wireless sensor networks provide alternatives for monitoring that are comprehensive. WSN based wildlife monitoring will not be successful without a careful consideration given to the choice of integrated radio frequency modules. WSN provide efficient administration of conservation projects thanks to the integration of sensors and the communication technology. It helps us better understand animal populations to safeguard ecosystem for the future. So these in these papers, what we can see here is for long-time survival of the WSN. So we need to meet the criteria to conserve the wildlife. So 12th paper, it discusses about the necessary things to meet the criteria, crucial factors. So in the 13th paper, uh, we are studying to collect data, animal behavior, and environmental characteristics, where are added to these networks. So to get the different characteristics of data of animals and plants. So in the 14th paper, what we see here is wildlife monitoring will not be successful when we give a choice of integrated radio frequency modules. So without using choice of integrated radio frequency modules, uh, so monitoring is not be a successful when without using this module. So in 15th paper, administration of conservation projects has been studied, and from this paper we understood that animal populations to safeguard ecosystem for the future. It helps whenever we use administration of conservation projects using integration of sensors. So it helps animal population to safeguard ecosystems for the future. In proposed system, wireless sensor networks are based on principle that disparate parts such as sensors, communication modules, and data processing algorithms may operate together in harmony. The method has potential use in wildlife monitoring and defense of ecological systems. These sensors, which are positioned in such a way as to capture relevant data from the wildlife habitat as a whole, are at the core of wildlife sensing networks. These sensors include, but are not limited to, devices that are linked to the global positioning system, accelerometers, ambient sensors, and imaging sensors. WSN sensors almost always include transceivers and low power microcontrollers as a standard equipment, which enables wireless data collection and transfer. The collected data is sent through wireless transmission from the sensors to the central base station or sync node of the network. Several wireless protocols, including Zigbee, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi, are used successfully to carry out the connection. The data processing and analysis capabilities of wireless sensor networks are necessary for tracking wildlife. In addition, useful information from copious volumes of raw data collected by the sensor. It is necessary to get efficient data processing strategies. So, data processing strategies are important. The other thing is integration of sensors is also important. And when you integrate, you get more processed data of the animals and plants. So also we use here several wireless protocols like Zigbee, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi that can be used to perform the connection. So in proposed data, after the data have been proposed and evaluated, they must be utilized to understand the behaviors of wild animals better and contribute to ongoing conservation efforts. When it comes to the fundamental operation of WSNs, for tracking and protecting wildlife, the seamless integration of sensors, communication modules, and data processing algorithms is the most important aspect. The process of wildlife monitoring and conservation is comprised of several interconnected steps that allow for continuous collection, transmission, and analysis of data. This is made possible via AWSN. To get started, sensors like GPS, accelerometers, environmental sensors, and imaging devices are carefully placed throughout the wildlife habitat to collect particular data relevant to animal behavior, movement patterns, and habitat conditions. The data is wirelessly sent from the sensor to the central base station or sync node where it is processed. The base station acts as an aggregation point for the data received from various sensors that have been put in field and also gathers, consolidates the data from these sensors. The processed data are evaluated to understand better wildlife behavior, travel patterns, and habitat utilization. Researchers can keep tabs on abnormalities in animal behavior and critical ecosystem. Migration patterns and animal movement patterns. The insights that may be gained by analyzing data are very helpful to conservation efforts. The preservation of a biodiversity, reducing the risks, and protecting endangered species are all possible outcomes of conservation efforts. Wildlife monitoring and conservation wireless sensor networks use a wide array of sensors to gather public particular data. These sensors are supplied with wireless transceivers and low power microcontrollers so they can connect with the WSN This makes it feasible for the wireless WSN to collect data from the sensors. By incorporating several of these sensors into animal sensor network, researchers can achieve a full grasp of the dynamics of animals. Because of this, it is much simpler to put effective conservation plans into action and make choices because of accurate information to safeguard and preserve endangered species and the environment in which they live. So, in our proposed methodology, what we want to discuss here is we are integrating the number of sensors uh, in harmony, and we are using a GPS global positioning system, and we are implementing the wireless protocols like Zigbee, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi to carry out the connection. And the other thing is to get started, this all sensors, GPS, accelerometers, environmental sensors, and image devices are carefully placed throughout the wildlife habitat to collect particular data relevant to animals. So the placement is also important. So if you don't place the sensors properly, the information about the behaviors about animals and plants cannot be, we cannot get it properly. So coming to result and analysis, the use of WSN for wildlife conservation and tracking has yielded considerable result and important insights into the behavior, movement patterns, and habitat exploitation by various flora and fauna species. These findings are extremely useful, are extremely helpful. So as you can see, the GPS tracker, accelerometer, ambient sensors, and camera traps are just some of the sensors that have contributed to the picture of animal behavior. Movement, mating, and feeding patterns are just few examples of animal behavior that may be better understood. So these are the results and discussion of the paper. Thank you.